Mom, I like to propose a dinner optimization plan for 2026. Soccer practice every week. Get back late and you're stressed out about making something fast, but actually nutritious for dinner. When Ashley's mom picked me up, I noticed that she made Blue Apron. It came like a little kit. By the time it was ready, I still had shin guards on. And it was real food, fresh veggies, protein, actual flavor. Take her from the younger generation. We're innovators, keeping a couple Blue Apron meals around. Not the worst idea.
Get 50% off your first 2 orders plus free shipping with code LISTEN50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Hi, this is Ed, and on another of our summer specials, I talked to Musa Okwonga, poet, author, writer, journalist, podcaster, musician, artist. I think I've got it all in there, and we talk a little bit about his life and some of the new work he's got out, which I think is well worth exploring. We mentioned the books and the podcasts and the music. And then we talk about football, and I wanted to have a pretty wide-ranging discussion with him. If you know him from Stadio, they cover all sorts of stuff. So we talk about some of the sort of managerial merry-go-round this summer, potential transfers, talk a lot about United, about the European Super League, and about the Euros and Copa America. So enjoy this conversation, and we'll see you on the next one. So I'm here with Musa Okwonga, and he's what is he? A writer, broadcaster, musician, poet, author, podcaster. Have I missed anything out there, Musa?
No, it's good. It's good. You got it all. You got it all, man. You got it all. Thank you. Appreciate it, Ed.
So a lot of recent stuff has come out from you, and where should we start? You've got a book with Ian Wright coming up. I think it's a kid's book following in the footsteps of Marcus Rashford, I guess. Tell us about that, and then we'll go into some of your other stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, really excited. So the book is called Striking Out. It's coming out in September, early September. And I guess as a shortcut, it's almost like, imagine Better Like Beckham, but if Beckham was actually in the book. So it basically features Ian as he is now, so 57-year-old Ian. It's obviously a fictional story. But it's basically a story where Ian has a chance meeting with a brilliant young footballer from East London who is struggling to make it, and they end up getting on really well. And Ian's like, you know what? Let's see if we can help you make it, both on and off the field. Because Ian sees a lot of the kid in himself. Outstanding young talent, but also going through some really tough stuff at home that Ian knows all about. So yeah, that's the book. Really excited by that, actually. That was a lot of fun to write because it was writing a book for a kind of like 10-year-old plus age bracket, but the dream is for people of all age ranges to read it. So it's written at that kind of pitch up level. Yeah, there's plenty of fun. Yeah,
nice. Yeah, and I mean you have a lot of range with your writing. So you also brought out earlier this year, In the End, It Was All About Love, which is sort of a part memoir and part fiction, part sort of lament about the troubles freelance writers have getting paid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's got this for listeners who haven't had a chance to read it yet. It's got this secondhand writing style, which is can be a bit jarring with authors when that happens. But then at the same time, it's very intimate about your life, or it's a fictionalized version of your life, isn't it? And integrating into Berlin, what Berlin means to you, the people. There's a lot of characters. How it feels to be a black man in Berlin, or riding the train.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it's kind of really, I mean, short stories and novella, but fascinating book.
Thanks very much. No, I appreciate it. And I feel that book it wrote itself because there was so much in there I had to say about, reaching 40 and, love, faith, racism, refugees. My parents are refugees, so all of that. And I love, you said it right, range. I love writing a range of things. I'd hate to be typecast as a football writer or a children's writer. I want to just do all the things. So I thought if I put out as much different stuff as possible, then there's no chance of being categorised. So I think so far so good.
And then one of them, which is an Eton College memoir, which is about your time at Eton and perhaps your time missing out on being a member of the Tory cabinet. I mean,
someone said that. An ex-girlfriend said that. She said, if you shared their politics, she said, you'd probably be at that party right now.
I think there's 4 old Etonians in the cabinet right now, and a couple about your age.
4, so that many? Oh my goodness, it's that many. Oh my goodness, yeah, wow.
Yeah, well, wild. There you go. Musa Okwonga, MP for where? East Berlin.
Someone they like to put you in sort of like Beaconsfield, isn't it? Sort of like these sort of like a nice, safe.
Yeah. Bexley
Heath, Bromley, these kind of like London suburbs. That's where they put me, I think. Yeah.
I mean, it's a fascinating sort of topic to cover, really, and especially for those people who don't know you as your full history and some of the background, and then football. So I'm sure there's many listeners who also listen to Stadio. It's 2 blokes speaking about football, but that doesn't really give the full picture, does it? About the tone and the themes that you have in Stadio each week.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Ed. I think when we started doing Stadio, Ryan was like, "Yeah, that's the last thing the world needs." And 2 blokes who like football, but we tried to look at football on and off the field in quite a fun, conceptual way. So we might spend an entire episode talking about passing, like, your favourite through ball. So like everyone knows the Varane pass, the Solskjaer, which is like probably my favourite United through ball, I think. So we did like a whole episode on like the art of passing. We got to know Ian Wright through an interview we did with him about the art of finishing, because we're like, we want to talk about like break down what an elite striker does. Right, like a Van Nistelrooy against Basel, the classic one, when he goes to the near post and then like chips it into the near post.
Right.
There's so many different decisions that go into that. So we go into like a quite granular detail about aspects of football on the field, but we also like zoom out and look at like the European Super League, for example. So we went in on that and attacked it very aggressively. Vigorous critique of the owners of Manchester United. So yeah, we have we like to keep people guessing, I think. Keep it quite free-flowing and original. So
yeah, I mean, it is, and it's also a blend of culture as well. And I'm always amazed by just how many different leagues and teams you can encompass in one episode. So either you're very well researched or you're watching 60 games a week, and how you can do...
We're watching a lot. It's both. Yeah, we're watching a lot. No, it's just me and Ryan. So yeah, we're watching a lot of football. Ryan, one weekend, he's the best at it. He watched 13 games, I think, one weekend. Full games. So we watch a lot of football. But it's like, anyone that studied any degree at uni, you do, like I did a law degree, and like if you study, one course of multiple subjects, you study enough of them, you start seeing connections between them. So you might watch a lot of French football, a lot of Mexican football, a lot of Italian, you start seeing like common threads. It's really quite exciting. And when you start noticing characters popping up in different leagues, then it gets really cool, because like, wow, football's just like one big like organism. Like, it's amazing. So
yeah, I think we'll get onto some of these topics. I think. I mean, we've just done our review show on NQAT, and we'll put that out. It's probably out by the time you're listening to this, folks. But so I thought for our chat about football, we'd talk a little bit about what's going to happen this summer, because there's a lot of themes, I think, in European football, especially, that are going to play out, and a lot of moving pieces. But before we get to that, just you're there. People listening can't see it because this is a podcast, but you have a big Wrighty's House microphone.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? It's a fun podcast.
Yeah. So this is wild. So Wrighty's House is also on the kind of Ringer FC feed as right. Stadio. So I was on Twitter a few years ago. I was just sending some tweets, and then Ian Wright starts following me on Twitter. And I was like, okay, this is one of my favourite footballers ever. A lot of people's favourite footballer. And so I dropped him a DM after a few hours. Didn't want to seem too keen, and I was like, thanks for the follow. My stuff is a bit random. I hope you find my tweets interesting. It's like, yeah, no, I enjoy your stuff. Like, I've been following it for a bit. And I was like, oh, he'd read my stuff, like my political stuff, as it turned out. So we get talking, and after about 6, so leave it at that. You never want to get too excited when someone that follows you, if they do at all. You don't want to sort of scare them off with your like wild tweets. After about 6 months, I thought, you know what? let me see if he'd fancy coming on Stadio to talk about the art of finishing. So I sent a message to his management, and they were like, he loved it. Like he received so many messages. He says no to almost anything, but the way that we said, like, we want you to just break down goal scores. No one asked him to do that.
Yeah.
So we did that episode, The Art of Finishing. We did one with him and one with Gary Lineker, and they were both unbelievable experiences because you had them talking about. There's a goal when Ian Wright chips John Lukic, using David Weatherall as a shield, and the way that Ian breaks down what he does, the thought process is mind blowing. Bergkamp plays a ball and it's a really bad pass, and which is never happens. Bergkamp doesn't do that. And the ball almost hits Ian in the face. And he looks up and Bergkamp's just standing there going, go on then. And he's like, I'm in the final third by myself. Bergkamp's not making a run. So I've got to improvise. And he makes like 3 brilliant decisions in like 2 seconds. And it's one of the goals of the season. And that's how it started. And he so got into that a few months later, when we went to Spotify during the pandemic, we kept talking. And then Spotify were like, look, you get on well with him. We're going to offer him a podcast. Why don't you and Ryan be like revolving guests on the show? So it all came very like
perfect.
Yeah.
It's interesting when some of the smarter footballers, and Wright is one of those, are able to break down the game in ways others can't. And I don't know whether you saw the interview between Rio and Pep Guardiola ahead of the Champions League final. And Guardiola gives this masterclass on Chelsea's tactics and basically says, look, this is how they're going to play and this is how they're going to beat us. And then it played out. And it was fascinating because you could see, even in that short conversation, the sort of genius of Guardiola and how he's able to think laterally about the game in ways others can't. But then the fun bit was, of course, City played exactly into Chelsea's trap and lost as a result.
Yeah, exactly. I really feel like, and we'll get to like tactics and everything later, but I think that Pep knew exactly what Tuchel was going to do, obviously. And he almost was like, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. He had to change something, didn't he? Because Tuchel had worked out what City were doing. Like, you've gone that long playing without a striker. Well, Tuchel knows there's a way you can't hurt you. Like, do you really tempt fate with a back three if you've got an Erling Haaland up front for City? I don't think you do. I don't think you tempt fate like that. I think you keep it honest. I think you keep it simple. But I think, unfortunately, the success of City, they baked in the failure as well. They let themselves. If you don't, at the end of the day, like, I know I'm going to sound a bit like Luddite here, but it's a bit like the dragon in the Game of Thrones. Like, Haaland is a dragon, right? And City don't have a dragon. And as Aguero has declined in strength, there are some things all you can do. Yeah. Sometimes all you need a crossbow, and they don't have it. They don't. And I think if they do upgrade City, I reckon Haaland has to be the next thing for them. They've got to go for someone like that who's just basically like who will steal the game.
It's interesting whether Pep would take such an individual player on because he's obviously brilliant, but he's a little ungainly, and there's one school of thought that says that Haaland doesn't make you better as a team. Much like when Ibrahimovic was at United for 2 seasons, the football was dreadful, and Ibra was scoring bags of goals. And I don't know whether Dortmund are a better team necessarily with better style-wise. So that'd be an interesting mix if City do go for that. I don't know whether they'll spend that money.
They need to adapt. I think what I will say in Haaland's...
They need to change for sure, yeah.
Yeah, what I will say in Haaland's defence is that his combination play is surprisingly good for a player of that dimension. Like someone like Van Nistelrooy. No, I adore Van Nistelrooy, probably my favourite United striker. But Van Nistelrooy did have that thing of like the attack went through him.
Yes.
And the unusual thing about Haaland, the weird thing about Haaland is very good at deferring. He's very good at like dragging people and allowing people to run into gaps, which is why Marco Reus, the later part of the season, scored so many goals because Haaland was like very happy to like vacate, and you very rarely see that. And Lukaku actually, bless him, Lukaku didn't have the best time at United towards the end, but Lukaku actually was quite good at that at Inter. Very good at like just getting out of everyone's way.
Right.
And if you can get he's someone like Ibrahimovic, unfortunately, wherever his career has gone, Ibra has kind of, great player, but he's not one to vacate the stage, is he?
He certainly is not.
No, he's not. On or off social media, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's one of the sort of revolving stories that I think will be interesting this summer is exactly how City respond to that Champions League defeat. Because Pep has signed up for another 5 years, so the doubts about him and his commitment appear to have gone, and
Right.
and so I don't know whether that was the thing necessarily holding City back from a third or fourth wave of nation state spending or not, but they might do this summer. They might.
Yeah, why wouldn't they? I mean, it works very well for them. The Abu Dhabi project, and it's a project. It's worked very well for them. Like, it's put them on the map. It's an incredible piece of branding, like from a corporate point of view. And you're like, no, United is the same. United are trying to do the same branding thing. Well, they don't care so much about the image, but the City project is. Why would you change anything? They're going to be back in that final under Pep, I think. If you look at the disarray in which the major clubs in Europe are, and the lack of firepower, so many of those clubs, there's no reason why City can't just be back here again this time next season. There's no reason at all.
Well, sure, with both of the major Spanish clubs in a real mess and doing free transfers only this summer, you imagine.
Oh my God. Bargain basement Barca.
Yeah,
it's really brutal.
They really are. And Real have to shift something like 100 million off their annual budget, I think, something like that. So, I think your analysis of City having a really good chance of being in this final again, rings very true. And thinking about some of the other giants as well around Europe, obviously United are some distance. Are United still a giant? To be confirmed this summer, and Juve, we'll see where they go. Obviously, they've got Allegri back there, but Cristiano may leave. They have budget issues too, and Bayern under Nagelsmann. Well, we'll see.
Like they're all in transition, and City aren't. And that is why they kind of have to be the front runner again next year. But yeah, we'll see.
So, I mean, you follow, every club in Europe, if Stadio is anything to go by, but I think you keep one eye on United as well. And it's going to be it's going to be an interesting time this summer for United. I mean, I'm very much in two minds about what might happen here. Because, one scenario that feels very true is that the Glazers have been spooked by the ferocity of the fan backlash to the Super League.
Yeah, that was surprising. Yeah.
I mean, at least superficially they have, and they may believe a shiny toy will buy off the fans, and it certainly would buy off a certain section. I think
it would.
Not necessarily the people breaking into Old Trafford, but then there's another scenario that says, look, there's no budget. 200 million or so it's cost United the pandemic, and what are they going to do? Take up another loan in order to spend money. So, I'm kind of in two minds what might happen. And given that Ollie is going to be around, they're not firing him, and he may well get a new contract.
And it's funny. Like, United are, the way they are on the field is a perfect metaphor for the way they are off the field. So, across the field in key areas, they're at like 75 to 80% of where they should be. And that's good enough to keep things as they are, but it's not good enough to win the biggest prizes. That makes sense. It's this awful bind. It's this awful bind. So you've got like the brilliant Mason Greenwood, who was maybe a season and a half away from just becoming a lights out.
Yep.
But then you don't in that time bring in a player ahead of him in the queue because you stunt his development. You don't want that. So it's a kind of twist or stick. And you've got Marcus Rashford, who is knackered and who's been playing with an injury.
Yeah.
And who there needs to be better attacking coordination in the final third for United, right? You saw against Villarreal. Villarreal is a good example of like where Bruno Fernandes, endless improvisation. But sometimes you need to work off sheet music. And the problem with Villarreal, they saw it kind of like, look, Bruno's basically going to innovate, and he'll get bored and he'll get frustrated.
Yes.
He'll keep trying to play. He's trying to hit the killer pass, but you can't because the pass doesn't exist.
There was no space. Yeah, no, Emery was brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it really was a final of. I mean, as was the Champions League final of coaching, and you could really see it on the field. And Villarreal, of course, you could call it sort of parking the bus or anti-football, but they knew exactly what their plan was, and they squeezed the space. And United play with space. They do play with space.
Absolutely, yeah. They are ruthless. United are one of the best teams at exploiting gaps. because they're so naturally talented and they have players that love. They've got maybe the most talented, I would call, not freestyle footballers as in like doing kick-ups and fancy skills. They're good at that. They're amazing at improvising. All of them. Rashford is Rashford against Leipzig is peak Rashford, right? Now, Villarreal were like, okay, we're going to take away all of that. We're going to compress all the gaps and make you play through us diagonally. We're going to stagger it. We're going to be like they're like the sort of the tiles of like an armadillo, like where the amount of times Fernandes tries to play that through ball in a straight line, and they're like, that's night and day to us. Whereas if you have someone like Tuchel or Guardiola, they're shifting the ball. I mean, actually, Pep didn't shift the ball on.
Not enough.
Shift the ball. Not enough. But Chelsea in particular, the ability of these teams to like shift across the final third, that's something United don't do.
Yes. Yeah,
there is
not an obvious pattern to play in United's attacking. It is. I mean, it does. I mean, I know this is fairly reductive as a piece of analysis, but it is a team of individuals and highly weighted towards that. And Bruno's ability to take risks. I mean, I think I was looking at the stats, and his pass completion rate on long passes, so I think that's anything over 30 yards, is about 50%. So he's playing the roulette table every time and hoping it comes up red.
And they know he'll do that. That's something. There's so much data available that the opposition players know he'll do that. Now, this is why I think they love Sancho. If you look, I mean, you know this, but Solskjaer, one of the most impressive Solskjaer guys was, I think it was 03 when he played as on the right flank. Sancho and Solskjaer actually have very similar playmaking profiles.
Right.
See the way that Solskjaer would like drag himself out to the right and play these lovely angled balls in between the fullback and the centre back. Sancho par excellence. The ability, Sancho basically is amazing because he's so fast, so he gets into the final third very quickly, but then he has pause. He's so patient. He will sprint into the final third on the edge of the box and he won't cut towards goal. He'll wait for everyone to catch him up. He'll play keep ball. He'll overlap with the fullback, and he's so smart. And I think Solskjaer looks at that and goes, I may not coach complex attack systems in the final third. I'll buy playmakers who are smart enough. It's actually quite Mourinho. I will buy playmakers. It's not disrespect. I don't mean it's a disrespect. I mean
that's right.
Mourinho, peak Mourinho, wasn't really too fussed about those complex systems because he bought playmakers who are so good, like Robin and Duff, who could just create it. And I think that's the Solskjaer method. Now, the problem with that is that's very, very effective until the quarterfinals and semifinals of every major tournament and every title race. And it keeps making you fall short. And I've said this about Solskjaer before. It's not a disrespectful thing. It's not meant like that. It's like I've always said, there is an extra 15%. There's an extra 15% in the top. There's maybe like 4 managers in the world that have the extra 15%, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. But the problem is they're the ones you keep meeting. They're the ones who keep meeting.
And I don't know how Solskjaer breaks that cycle. Of course, the ownership, and coming back to my original sort of question I posed is, for them, it doesn't matter. Like winning the European Cup and winning the Premier League isn't that important.
I think he breaks it.
It's not
I
fundamental.
think he gets an amazing number 2.
Model.
I think Solskjaer gets an amazing number 2. I think that's the answer. Because he has mastered the man management, right? He's extracted performances of people like Pogba we never thought were possible. We considered that Pogba was out the door like around Christmas. It was unthinkable. So he's done that. But I think an amazing number 2. And then for Solskjaer to kind of be like, look, I will trust in your methods. That could be the key, I think.
Yeah. It'd be interesting if there is any shake-up. I mean, I don't necessarily see it coming. He seems to have a lot of trust in Carrick and Phelan and McKenna as his core coaching team, but I wonder whether he recognises himself the limitations. And this summer we'll see whether United do the sensible thing, because I think it's like it's blindingly obvious, isn't it, that a central defender, a defensive midfielder, and a right-sided forward are what will take this team forward. And I'm bored of myself saying that. Very bored.
We've been saying it for what? How many years? A decade? It's so wild. I can't think of a major asset. It's the equivalent of like having a convertible and never pulling the roof up, even in the driving rain. United's midfield weakness has been, and central defence to a certain extent, it's been that way for about 10 years. Even when United were still winning, Premier League titles, there was a gap in the depth. And you know that Solskjaer does know there is a problem because he's terrified of his bench. He is terrified of his bench. Sometimes the inaction tells you as much as the action.
Oh, for sure.
So he knows what's wrong. He knows what's wrong. And listen, you don't play with players of that quality and remain unaware of what the real deeper issues are systemically. And also, frankly, as well, everything that we are saying on this podcast has been said in a WhatsApp group to him a dozen times a week. They know. They're not stupid. They know what's going on.
Well, that kind of brings me to the sort of merry-go-round of players that may or may not happen this summer. So, we talked about Holland, Brashear. It looks like that they are quite prepared to sort of dig their heels in, as they did with Sancho last season, and not let him go, even if it's sort of double the fee that they might get the year afterwards. And then there's the question of Mbappe, PSG. Will he see out the final year of his contract, or can Real magic up some money from somewhere? And then in the Premier League, Harry Kane, he has shocked me actually with how kind of open he is about wanting to move. What will happen with these three players, and how does that sort of determine the winners and the losers for the season to come?
See, I think Kane's agents should be beating a path up the M62. I think they need to get. They need to get to Manchester. Harry Kane to Manchester City, I think, would be amazing, because I think he wants that Premier League goal scoring record, and I think it's a really good fit. And also, he won't get the kind of hate, because Spurs to City, it won't be it's not like Campbell to Arsenal. I think it's a clean fit.
Yeah,
and it allows City to kind of play their game very naturally, and they get a few good seasons out of him. It allows Ferran Torres time to come through. And they do need someone to knit their forward line together and to give central defenders different kinds of problems. Haaland, I think, stays at Dortmund for another year. It just makes sense. There's a really great core of young players there. Winning the German Cup, the DFB Pokal, was a huge deal for them as a bonding experience. And frankly, I think Dortmund have got a really good chance to make a run at the Bundesliga and the Champions League next year. Because Bayern are in a big transition now. They're in a big transition with Nagelsmann going there. It's an unknown quantity. Dortmund, towards the end of the season, put together a really good run of form, and they've got a serious firepower for the Champions League. And I almost feel like they should say, the way they should sell it, the Dortmund aristocracy, the kind of Dortmund management or board of directors, be like, listen, Erling, going to go and be a huge striker in the Premier League or La Liga, more likely Premier League because they've got more money. Not that he's greedy, but because Barca and Real just probably can't really afford him at this point. But give us 12 more months. And 12 more months playing with Sancho and Bellingham and Reina, and I say that as someone that watches these people regularly, that is an astonishing group of players.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. Mbappe's a funny one, because Mbappe's had some very patchy form. Until he went supernova in the Champions League, he was having a tough season domestically, but still ended up top scorer. Mbappe's a funny... He's
27 goals in Ligue 1, which isn't the Farmers League, but it's still...
It's a fast... It's not a Farmers League. It's a very, very quick league. Poch said something interesting. Pochettino said, Ligue 1 is the fittest league. And you can see it because they're so disrespectful. It's almost like they thought, we can't beat PSG through football talent. We're just going to harass them. We're going to harry them as much as we have for 90 minutes. And so all the teams are basically super fit because it's the only way you can hang with the top teams.
Yeah.
And now, you watch PSG this year. I mean, they obviously lost to Lille in the title race. That's a very good league to be in for maybe another year or so, I'd say. It's not a bad league to be in. And why would Mbappe move, especially when big clubs aren't really shelling out post-pandemic? It makes sense to stay for one more year, see where the lie of the land is, see what the managerial situation is at PSG. Because Mbappe's got time. He's got time. All of that. And also, frankly, the two clubs that he might be best placed to go to, Real, Barca, they don't have any money.
Yeah, they are broke. They might be able to come up with the wages in a year's time, but not the 200 million euro fee or something like that. Yeah. And then it kind of leads me to the question of Ronaldo and Messi, really. I mean, it seems like Messi may be flirting with staying at Barcelona now and not taking City's cash, which is... part of me was kind of luridly looking at that, thinking, well, that might be kind of interesting to see him in the Premier League for a couple of years, even if it's at City.
I wouldn't want it. You know why I wouldn't want it? Because, oh my God, the parochial pundits would be awful. Messi can't cut him. he's in his mid-30s. Like, there'd be all this talk about how Messi isn't all that, and like someone would tackle him. You'd have like as a fullback from a newly promoted side would tackle and be, oh, look, Messi's been owned. It's like, well, it's just no.
Yes.
So I almost, the indignity of it, I didn't want the indignity of it for Messi. And he had an incredible season. Like the numbers, I was looking back at the numbers, like Ryan sent me the breakdown.
Yeah.
Messi was leading attackers in every single major statistical category. And that's Messi at like 80% speed.
That's
like,
right.
That's scary.
Because he's all the talent's still there, and he's adapted his game in a smart way. I always did wonder whether Messi would drop deeper and deeper. Actually, he's gone further and further forward as his career has gone on. 30 goals in La Liga this season, and it's a pretty poor Barcelona side. So
really poor, shameful wasted talent. But I think under Pep he drops deeper. That's the thing. I think under Pep, Messi. I mean, that's a pairing that should just never have split up, frankly. I mean, I know that he had to leave Barca, Pep, for very good reason, but those two working together they were like nothing I've ever seen. I mean, I still talk about that 2011, well, we all do, we try not to, but the 2011 final, Barcelona beating Man United 3-1. I turned to someone in a bar, I was watching in bar kick in Shoreditch, and I turned to this guy, a Barcelona fan, it was 2-1 at the time, and I said, do you know what, like, there's no shame in this. It's 2-1 and it's a thrashing. I've never seen football like this. Never seen it. Yeah.
No, it's interesting, those big moments. I was deeply disappointed about the 2009 final and even the Europa League final just gone. I mean, it's the Europa League, but it felt like an important moment for United. And the 2011 final doesn't fit into that category. I mean, of course, it was an insane moment when Rooney equalised, and there was that brief moment of hope, very quickly extinguished by an outstanding Barcelona side, the best Barcelona, the best side I've seen, I think, in my lifetime.
Like that.
United couldn't touch them at all, and Ferguson had no answers, and it's whatever he tried, and that team got more and more frustrated as the game went on. It was a boxer getting toyed with, wasn't it?
I've never seen him so despondent. I've never seen Ferguson so despondent as after 2011 final. I think when he genuinely was like, there's a famous video on YouTube actually of them doing one touch Barca before the game. It's like a sort of drone eye view, and the speed they are hammering the ball into feet in this rondo, the sort of pig in the middle. Ferguson after 2011, 2009, he looked disappointed because he knew that we had a plan. And we kind of conceded too early and all the rest of it. And also we had the Fletcher injury to contend with, which was a real loss. But 2011, generally, I mean, this is why I will always love Wayne Rooney, despite, the tragedy of his later years and the challenges. Wayne Rooney's bravery in big games, this man went looking for responsibility. He had no right to score a goal that good. And it's one of the forgotten great goals, actually.
It is, switches it across the keeper, and it's a beautiful finish. Yeah, I saw recently, and I know we're going on tangents, but that's what we do on this.
It's a podcast,
yeah, that's what we do all the time on this one. I saw a sort of highlights package of Rooney at Euro 2004 recently.
Oh my god!
What a player he was, and as good as anything anywhere in the world at 18, and the maturity with which his game, not technically but tactically as well, and the positions he took up.
Oh my god! Like against Croatia, he looked as if he was about to score in every. There were very few players that had that thing where. Rooney against Fenerbahce, he looked as if he was about to score on every run forward. It was in that Euros, he was absolutely astonishing. Rooney's first touch, gets a lot of criticism. Rooney's first touch has always been psychological and fitness related. For me, when Rooney in the 2005 FA Cup final, when he peeled up to the right flank most, and he was man of the match, in my opinion, he was absolutely amazing. Like Rooney, like chipping David James, like stuff like that. This is like Rooney was an artist, right? And there is a classic player where it really is, people talk about Rooney's lifestyle, but there's also like your body and fitness issues, and like how Rooney's body was never in his favour. He wasn't blessed with, I would say, the natural sort of physique. But peak Rooney was one of the most overwhelming footballers and the best possibles I've ever seen. He was a true great.
It is. I had the pleasure of watching the George Best documentary on BT Sport, really. It's a little bit of a hagiography.
Of course, of course.
It's and we've all seen the clips. And I had a chat to Callum Best about that, which is kind of interesting conversation with obviously his son and an interesting relationship with his father and everything that went on there he. I think he talked about Rooney on that one, how much he loved him, and it was.
Oh, really? George Best loved Rooney.
George Best remained a United fan right to the end. Passionate.
Wow, that's
passionate
amazing.
United fan, just kind of made me think about like how we evaluate players, and sometimes the story around them overwhelms the product on the pitch, doesn't it? And that happened with Rooney.
We're going to be a lot kinder to Rooney as time goes on. Do you know why? And Rooney had the thing about great players. Rooney scored great goals in matches that didn't matter. They did matter because they were cup games. But see, it was the couple he scored against Middlesbrough, the incredible chip,
right?
And the airborne volley, and like he would score goals like that, almost like it's a demonstration. It was almost like it was for me. Great footballers don't just give you trophies, they give you moments, right? They give you moments, whether they're slide tackles, diving headers, whatever. And Rooney understood the need to entertain. I don't mean entertain in some frivolous way. I mean as in people have come for a spectacle. People have come for escapism. They've come to see something they cannot get in their 9 to 5s, or these days they're sort of, 6 till 11 is the hours people are working these days. And Rooney understood the need to elevate. And that is what places him in the category of artist, which is, as pretentious as that sounds, I think it's up there. Like George Best taking his boot off and playing the pass. It's that level of ingenuity and invention. There's so much talk about how Rooney sacrificed himself for Ronaldo, so Ronaldo could be the big goal scorer. I think that's also fair. I've said that a lot. I think that's fair. There's I always talk about a game when they're breaking through on goal. I think it was a Reading match or an FA Cup game where they're through on goal. It's like 2-on-1 and Ronaldo doesn't square it. And Ronaldo finishes it, and Rooney jogs away, slightly disappointed, and wheels around and comes and congratulates him. And there's a second of hesitation, not because Rooney's being, he's not angry at Ronaldo, but there's a disappointment that it didn't come square. And I thought that sums it up.
Yeah.
That whole dynamic there is like, Ronaldo could never have elevated without Rooney's sacrifice. I will always believe that. I'll always love him for that.
And I think you're right. And, long-time listeners of this particular podcast will know that we bashed on Rooney for many years. It became the hashtag agenda for a while. But mostly that was out of disappointment with
exactly because you always understood what he was.
The decline that happened and the frustration that he would find a game. The season under David Moyes, for example, he found an extra gear of physicality that season.
It's extraordinary. Yeah, in the derby, the 4-1 defeat when he scores the free kick, and it's like, again, utterly fearless in a losing cause.
Yeah.
The amount of games that you could actually put together like a top 10 of Rooney performances, Rooney masterpieces and losing causes. You're like, my God, this man didn't disappear along with the rest of the team.
He didn't, and at no point did that happen right to the end. But it's almost as if he had a chronic disease, and his body wouldn't do what his brain told him to do, and the decline was really sharp as a result. And
super strange. The touch was so weird. Everyone would talk about Rooney's touch. I'm like, no, we remember it. We've seen it. We've seen Rooney do astonishing things with technique, and it just, like I said, it feels so psychological all the time.
His debut for England against Turkey, I think he's 17 years old. He plucks the ball out of the air and hits a 60-yard pass, and you're like,
floating.
What is this player that has hit the big stage already? And he always had that, and the sharp decline was really sad as a result. One of the players who hasn't seemingly declined physically is Cristiano, and there's a lot of talk about whether United, of course, have explored bringing him back to Old Trafford many times over the last decade or so, and ironically, is irony the right one? At this moment, right at the end of Cristiano's career, there's an opportunity to do that for astonishingly large wages, but probably no fee. And I wonder whether all the bells will be ringing in Joel Glazer's head going, oh, yes, we should do this. And whether United might explore that one this summer.
I think it's a funny one with Ronaldo because he scored a lot of goals for Juventus. And weirdly enough, look at the success of Cavani. From a purely pragmatic point of view, it is not a ridiculous thing to do for the next 18 months. It's actually, in a footballing sense, you don't have someone who gets in the long-term way of Greenwood. And you have, the United attack has missed a fixed point, actually.
Sure.
I personally think that you need to have Pogba in the final third as much as possible.
Yes.
I think that, you need to have an absolutely ball-dominant defence midfield. Like, this is the thing I said to a friend. I was talking to Carl Anker of the Athletic of that parish, and I said, it's so weird how the Manchester United team is becoming perfectly formed for Pogba just when he seems about to leave it. It's the first time United, so the last sort of third of the season, is the team that Pogba thought he was joining. This is the tragedy of Paul Pogba at United. Like, I think he genuinely has an affection for the club.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he arrived at United and was like, I've been slightly missold something. Mourinho was determined to fall out with him because Mourinho is determined to fall out with anyone who has a greater star power. And Mourinho calls it psychological, but it's really just Mourinho's insecurities playing out on a kind of very Freudian level. Mourinho's like the kind of the alligator who tries to eat the hippo. Like, his appetite is bigger than his stomach. And he tried to devour Sergio Ramos, didn't work. He could eat Casillas, but he could eat Pogba, where it didn't quite work with Pogba, but he almost did. So, Pogba getting on the ball in the final third with someone like a Ronaldo. Ronaldo, even now, I think scores a lot of goals in the current United setup. I think he scores a lot of goals because he's a plug-and-play striker. You put him in there and surround him with runners, he'll get you goals.
Yeah, it'd be interesting whether United go for that one. I mean, obviously the impact on the wage budget would be very large, but United trimmed the wages quite a bit, and they will do again this summer. I imagine seeing 5 or 6 players leaving. So
Solskjaer did a really good job with the clear out. I've got to say, he did an amazing job with the clear out.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
The tough one now is David De Gea and whether they're able to clear him out, because it makes no sense him continuing to be at the club. We were looking at the data. He's something like 8.5 minus 8.5 post shot XG against. So he's let in 8.5 goals more than the average keeper would. Should based on the post shot XG, so the quality of the shot. So
that's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and it's a stunning drop. So the thing that he was brilliant at, the superhuman saves, has gone, and the other stuff hasn't compensated for it either. So, but I my sense, speaking to people, is that they're not very sure about Henderson either, and I think we've seen that on the pitch. So
Donnarumma's available.
He's available, yeah, and he's not that expensive for Elliot. Sort of 6 or 7
It makes
million.
far too much sense for United to go to him. It makes far too much sense. I mean, look, Donnarumma going to United is as sensible as Arturo Vidal leaving Leverkusen and going to United. That didn't happen. Like, all United's past is littered with sensible signings they didn't make, like Yuri Tielemans.
Yeah.
Yuri Tielemans was right there. I mean, the amount of WhatsApp groups I've probably been kicked out of by friends of mine because of Euro Tielemans. I'll be saying it till my dying day, I think.
Oh, no. I mean, he gave us 6 months on loan at Leicester as a showcase to tell everybody that he should be signed. And
I'm on manoeuvres, yeah. It was right there. Oh, God. It's devastating.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing about United this summer. The fixes are possible, both in terms of it's very obvious what the club needs, and they've had plenty of time now with Murtaugh and the new team to set their targets and to work out what they're going to spend, and in theory, because of the way the UEFA have structured FFP this season, although United have lost sort of 200 million in revenue, they can just replace it with equity. They could just sell a load of shares and replace it. So it'd be very easy for United to actually take advantage of a lot of clubs. They won't do it like that, but they could do if there was a benevolent dictator in charge of the club. Then that's exactly what they would do.
Well, what's funny about United is that in terms of transfer business, there is someone there who really knows what they're doing. You don't bring in Bruno Fernandes if you don't know what you're doing. There is someone, when I look at United, and I almost see kind of rival camps, if I can say this. So you've got the kind of United where you've got part of the ownership structure where they're happy to like fund a re-election campaign for Donald Trump. Like you've got people doing fundraisers for Trump in the United ownership, but then you've also got people in United who are like seeing Marcus Rashford go through a difficult time, and they're supporting him socially and politically. It's almost like this rival kind of power basis ideologies, and within that, and I think there's from the same part, I wouldn't be surprised if there are people within United who tacitly support some of the protests we've seen in relation to the European Super League and beyond. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And within the United camp, within the United club, and it's such a fascinating club for that reason, it's almost like the Vatican. It's opaque, but you know there are like different things going on. So, for example, the signing of Fernandes, when I saw that, I was like, you know what? United might just be all right. Because that man came in and galvanised the front line of United in a way that I haven't seen. I don't want to draw comparisons with like other great playmakers who come. I don't think Fernandes deserves the comparisons because they put too much pressure, but Fernandes' effect on United is absolutely astonishing. And I'd like to see I don't know who recruited Fernandes, but I want to see what move they make next, because they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think, having had a chat to some of the stats people who work with the club, you know, they've got an outside agency they use and quite a significant department now using analytics. And so, you know, I think they have all the information they need. And for whatever reason, that hasn't married up with the financial side of the club to move quickly and to behave in the way that you'd expect a club that's although it's listed on the stock exchange, it's basically single family owned, and they don't have to answer to anyone. They don't, you know, the negotiation process should be quick, but actually it's been very, very slow. And we saw that with Fernandes, where it took, you know, they waited 6 months for €5 million of savings, which doesn't make any sense.
This is the thing. This is the weird thing about the Glazers, right? This is the weird thing about them. Even though they've loaded lots of debt on the club, they could still have won a lot more by just saying, we're just here to raid the club, okay, but we can still put really smart people in charge who know how to run the football side, and get players at a good price with a good coach and skill them up. And we can just keep winning and just quietly take the money, and no one's going to bother, because when United are doing well, people don't really complain. Well, they do, but it's the bulk of the fan base. Yeah, right. So this is what makes me so baffled about the Glazers, because they've actually wasted a lot of money. They've bought really, really bad, and I'm like, you're the Glazers, right? You've got access to like all this capital, all this data. You could go and get the best person to run this. I think the real problem is, I think it's really hard to find people with the brass neck of Ed Woodward who are also football people. I think that's the real problem. I think it's very, very hard to find people who are shameless, who also know how to run a football club. I think that's extremely difficult.
It is, and the clash, if they'd done a buy-in and brought in a bunch of ex-players, you know, just for the sake of it, Edwin van der Sar or someone, a real football person in administrative roles, the clash between the financial
can't control them. Yeah,
the Glazers
problem is they become figureheads.
You
can't, because what happens is at some point you bring in an ex-footballer. It's what they've been afraid of the world over. You bring in the ex-footballer and expect them to kind of play to your tune. And the ex-footballer basically becomes a bit of a populist and becomes the biggest problem.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and Joel Glazer wouldn't be able to control that. Yeah.
Look how terrified AC Milan have been of Paolo Maldini.
Yeah.
Like, they're so terrified of him because they know that he's just this calm, dignified, unruffled power broker, frankly. And they're terrified. You can see they're terrified because these directors are basically, frankly, a lot of them are like, no one really knows who they are, you know, and they're never going to win a battle of popularity. It's why, like, you know, the British Prime Minister is so terrified about Marcus Rashford, because he knows there's never a universe in which Marcus Rashford loses a popularity contest to Boris Johnson. Keeps trying it, but it's not working. Yeah.
Barack Obama's bestie, of course. Now,
Yeah, that's wild.
It's astonishing how far. I mean, I know that was set up by the publishers, but the fact that Obama took the meeting
Exactly.
says an awful lot about the reach that Marcus has had there.
His reach in America is extraordinary as well. People are really clocking it there too. You notice it, yeah. We heard that
I had a chat with Michael Calvin recently, and I don't know whether you've had a chance to read his new book.
I've not. No.
But it's an account of like his reckoning with his love of the game and falling out of love with the game in many ways. You know, he's a journalist that's followed the game for 40 years, 80
One
countries.
Of the best doing it.
Yeah, and beautiful sort of writing style as well. If you enjoy his stuff, and he's had this moment like many of us have had. At the reckoning with the Glazers at United, but other owners around England and Europe, the influx of private equity and US capital into European football and its impact on the game we love and how the vulture capitalists have sort of taken over and the profit motive has come in where for 100 years it was the local businessman done good who took his large fortune and turned it into a small one by owning the local football club. And, so I think that was an interesting conversation, like at this moment in time, not prescient because, of course, the European Super League was the epitome of this idea that only a few elite would capture all the value in the game and take all the money, but just like kind of reckoning with what it means to us now, I find myself constantly having to compartmentalize. I hate what the club United has become and what football as an industry is, but love the product on the pitch and remain completely addicted to it as a result. And
I would call it something like church, to be honest. Like, you can be a Catholic and still critique the Vatican and have no time for a lot of the bishops. But then you're like, well, I've got a relationship with the higher power or whatever, that almost like it maybe almost makes your devotion more pure because you're like, it doesn't matter what, like these owners can come and go, these infrastructures come and go, but ultimately I'll always be a United fan. And that's almost like people are returning to. That would have been a difficult maneuver to pull off emotionally, I think, if the Super League had gone ahead. I think, frankly, if that European Super League had happened, to me, if that happens, then Manchester United effectively no longer exist as the club that I understand them. And I think a lot of people, I had a chat with quite a few people, including the man from your parish, Mr. Ansorge, and a lot of people like, I really would struggle with this. I'd really struggle with.
I think you're right. I mean, it would be although in many ways, these owners of these super clubs and some of the nation state clubs treat the clubs like franchises anyway. It would be the kind of solidification of that.
I think the Super League was fascinating because you talk about the backlash. We heard from the Glazers more in 2 months than we'd heard from the previous, 16 years? But the fact that Joel Glazer actually came out and said something, I was like, this is extraordinary. It feels unprecedented. It shows that these people actually, in many ways, their mistake was to say something in a funny way, in a weird kind of way, because they'd kept up this veneer of, like, we don't say anything, and they kind of like, again, they were damned if they did, damned if they didn't, but they showed a weakness there in speaking, I thought. They showed a real weakness. And to me, it was like, these people aren't as confident in what they're doing to the club. They are very aware. That's it. The video for like one of the Glazers in the car park being asked questions. And I was like, why hasn't this happened 10 years ago? Like, why is this? I'm sure some journalists have tried, no disrespect, but not enough really. But yeah, fascinating.
It is, and then I wanted to sort of finish our conversation thinking a little bit about there's some international football going to happen this summer, and in the middle of a global pandemic,
oh my God,
we're going to be flying teams all around the place in 11 cities, I think, throughout Europe, the Euros, and I think just as we're recording, CONMEBOL have said that the Copa America will happen in Brazil,
the place with the most COVID cases in the continent. Unbelievable.
460,000 deaths, probably an undercount in Brazil.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say definitely.
It's astonishing, really. I was half expecting that Qatar or Saudi would put their hands up and say, "Yeah, we'll host it for you, no problem."
Right.
I don't know whether this is better or worse than that.
I think that what is interesting about these sort of petrostates that run these clubs now, they can really just wait for low-hanging fruit. Like the European Super League is a thing that can be held in abeyance until there's another sort of bout of economic desperation. And then someone can come in and be like, we'll offer this.
Mm-hmm.
Not a European Super League, but clubs can play an additional tournament. So have your league campaign, but maybe just trim your leagues by 6 clubs.
Yeah.
Oh, 6 clubs. Oh, we're not going to miss all. We're not going to miss all. Because we know deep down there's a lot of owners that are like, oh, we wouldn't miss those 5 clubs. So actually, this is what I think will happen. Trim your leagues from like 20 to 15. This is me just spitballing here. Trim your leagues from 20 to 15. And in return for you trimming your top divisions to 2015, the extra like games, give those to us. Give those fixtures to us. And we'll put them into a separate league played over like a summer, a knockout thing. And that is how the European Super League happens. It happens as a parallel tournament. Because what happened with this, they tried to be too bold with it.
Yeah.
And they didn't seek consensus. They didn't offer enough money in the back channels to the right people. They didn't seed it enough. They didn't make enough big journalistic hires. What they should have done, this is really cynical actually. If I was going to set up a European Super League, I'd set up this. Oh my God, this is terrible. I can't, if I say this on the thing, I'm giving them ideas. They're going to be like, yeah, we copied his blueprint. If I was going to set up a European Super League, I'd have created a complete parallel media infrastructure.
Sure, yeah.
I would have created my own Sky Sports, my own Athletic, my own, you know what I mean? I would have poached all the journalists I could and offered them like absurd amounts of money, broadcasters, and I would have had it all ready to go. Like that's why something like Bein or like Qatar, they're well placed to actually bankroll that. If they ever decided if a petrostate decided they wanted to run a European Super League, it would be a very different story.
It's revenue generating in a way that owning a club perhaps isn't, and your 5 billion euros or whatever the setup fee was that JP Morgan were going to put in, it isn't much to those. Yeah, no. I was kind of interested. Fascinated with how badly the launch went and the fact that they didn't actually appear to have a broadcast partner on board. And, there's an argument to say they don't. They just need the infrastructure. They just need
they just had a loan. That's they just had a loan in the end. Yeah. That's what they had.
It was kind of weird how paper thin, the actual plans were. You may well be right. It will come back in different guise at some point. The International Champions Cup may expand. I mean, whatever it is, yeah.
That's all terraforming. That is all terraforming. That's all getting people used to the idea of divorcing the clubs from the context. It's yes. Weaning. We're kind of being weaned onto solids. We're like babies being given a new diet. They're weaning us onto it. That's what's happening.
Which in a way is happening with the Euros, isn't it? I mean, it's all across Europe. It's not in one place. We're not going to get the sort of... we weren't going to get it anyway, given...
It's absolutely cursed, isn't it? We're closing our borders. We're closing our borders to the EU and opening our borders to football and COVID. It's incredible. Sorry, probably can't say it in the podcast, but that's how it...
No, it's amazingly dumb, and we'll see whether the bubbles survive all this crisscrossing of Europe that's going to happen. I mean, it was interesting. There was a River Plate game recently in which they had, I think, 14 or 15 players out. They managed to get 11 players on the pitch, but one of them was a broken midfielder who played in goal, who kept a clean sheet. We could get this, and they're going to have 26-man squads over the summer, and I assume that's to account for any outbreaks that they have.
What happens in the final? We missed the semi-finals and final because both teams are in quarantine.
I don't know how there's no rest day, there's no sort of reserve days or anything like that. It's the tournament, so
I'm concerned about these Euros. Actually, I'm not going to lie to you, Ed. I mean, of course, I'll watch the games because I'm a football fan and all the rest of it, but I look at it and just think this shouldn't be happening.
It definitely shouldn't. Be happening.
Yeah. For 1,000 different reasons, should not be happening.
And then the Copa America feels. I mean, it'll be played in Brazil. There's plenty of infrastructure there to host a tournament the size of Copa America, but I don't know how they're going to survive the bubbles. They haven't had the planning, of the training centres and the hotels that you typically have for a tournament of this size, and it feels like a disaster waiting to happen. Which once you've sacked off 2 potential hosts,
wild. It was meant to be
all
Colombia.
The red flags are there.
Oh my goodness, it's just an absolute. Ryan says it 1,000 times on studies. What are we doing? We're in a pandemic. We're in a pandemic. I can't. I mean, you can't. You can lead a horse to water. Everyone knows what this is. I mean, it's wild, Ed. It's wild. I just hope people get through it safely. In terms of the actual football, I mean, Portugal, Germany looking interesting now because Havertz has got his tail up after that win, and so has Werner. I think it comes a tournament too early, weird. I think Hansi Flick in charge of this Germany, I think it's a different proposition because he brings the freshest approach, and also he brings the resources and the know-how from Bayern. And Portugal looking dangerous, I think. They're the kind of what I call the scorpion in the sock. They're the dangerous one. Be
interesting whether they're, how open they are. But I do wonder if this is not a tournament, the Euros, where the teams that have had, fewer miles through the legs of...
Oh, like Greece in 2004.
Yeah, maybe, maybe one of those... and that it is true of Portugal, actually. Many of their players are not necessarily sort of, 60 game a season, having played in the top teams. Bruno Fernandes is, and he's shot as a result. But
he's absolutely shattered. He's on fumes. He's been on fumes about 3 months, though.
Yeah, I mean, he had 60 games last season. He had 58 this season, I think Bruno did, and something similar last season, and like 3 weeks off in between them. So it's...
Also, bless him, he doesn't pace himself. That is not a man that paces himself. Like, you can imagine Bruno Fernandes is probably like undefeated table tennis champion for the last year and a half. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't strike me as the kind of person that does half measures.
We were speculating, why is it that, given all he's done this season, 28 goals, 14 assists, he's I think his exchange is off the charts. He's involved in everything good that United do. Given that, why did his fellow players vote Luke Shaw as player of the season?
That is extremely...
What exactly that's in the dressing room to have...
That's an excellent point, That's an excellent point. And I think it's extremely... I'm always really... The Players' Player of the Year is actually one of the most political awards, and I'm not always sure it should exist. Like, when Ronaldo left Real Madrid, I always remember thinking and contrasting that with... When I left Madrid, it's always interesting seeing who says goodbye on social media and who doesn't. Because you can't fake that. Modric winning the Ballon d'Or was extremely interesting, and the responses to that and the joy of Modric winning.
Yeah.
There's a sense that Modric had carried maybe a lot of baggage for players that perhaps didn't run as much as they should have done in certain areas and were kind of padding their stats. And yeah, the Bruno Fernandes thing is interesting. I think it's one of those ones you can imagine people going, he's giving the big one about leadership on TV, but players can lead themselves. That whole, when Mourinho used to do this thing about, I've taken attention off the players, and thinking, but players, some of them like attention. Like, why take attention off Sergio Ramos? You can get away with it at Chelsea because the Chelsea players weren't that big yet, but you go to Real Madrid and go, I'm taking the focus off Iker Casillas. Casillas is like, he's not an egotist, but he likes getting praise. And you come out and you beat a team like, 3-1 away from home, and it's all Mourinho. They're like, hang on a minute, who was actually playing? And I wonder if sometimes Fernandes, he absorbs so much of the attention that it's almost like, you've got to understand what Luke is doing. So Luke Shaw, frankly as well, shout out to Luke Shaw, I think there's part that says that man recovered from horrifying injury and also, frankly, bullying. That man was brutalised. The way that man was talked to by Mourinho and by Van Gaal. Yeah. The way they went after that man's weight, body image, it's actually shameful. He's come through a lot, and he's still fairly young, Shaw.
Yeah.
He's been... I'm really, really delighted for him. And just before we go, everyone will remember that was the PSG injury he got. The PSV, he got the injury against PSV. And Memphis Depay and Luke Shaw was one of the best young left flanks in Europe. It worked so well because Depay was operating the inside left position, Shaw was overlapping, and it looked beautiful. And that qualifying round leading up to that PSV game, Luke Shaw was our best player.
Yeah.
He was erupting. He was becoming the best fullback we'd seen. He was becoming the best all-round left-back we'd had there since like Owen, I think, actually. He was that good.
I mean, as an 18-year-old, he had everything in the locker. There's some parts of his game needed maturing. The defensive side, fine, that's what you get with a 18-year-old, but the attacking side was all there, and it's taking him for all the reasons, post-injury, the people he surrounded himself with, the brutalizing effect of having Mourinho as your manager. It's taking him 5 years to get back to where he was, but I desperately surprised. I didn't think it would happen, and so it was interesting, and players know all that context too, and and it was interesting that they voted him the Manchester United Player of the Season, given everything that Bruno had done. But Shaw will be at the Euros, I guess, with England. Bruno certainly with Portugal. Is it kind of interesting looking at the United squad? There's not that many going to be away this summer, and so there'll be a group back at Carrington. I mean, Cavani will be hopefully not getting COVID.
Looking beautiful somewhere.
As always.
Edinson. I call them Edinsexuals. This kind of like this genre of, Cavani is the only person they're attracted to. Beautiful man. What a signing he was. And also, let me just say this. I was wrong about that because I saw Cavani being signed and I was like, has he still got all of that? Will it work? And now, of course, just wish that he'd been signed 5 years earlier.
Yeah, or even just in June.
Yeah, or just in June. Yeah,
just to get him fit, because we only really got half a season out of him. Yeah. Anyway, look,
good.
I love talking to you. It's been a while since we've seen each other. Since
good chinwag, that appreciate it.
How long have you been in Berlin now? It's 5
almost
years.
7 years. Almost 7
years. 7 years. Wow,
I know.
Time really flies, yeah. I think the last 2 times I was in Berlin, it was a flying visit. I did think about reaching out, but
you should have
such a
next
flying
time.
visit for work. Yeah, well, next time I'm over in Europe, I love Berlin as a city. It's I think you describe it in your book as the sort of rebel child.
Yeah, exactly. The rebellious child that somehow made a good life for itself. Yeah.
I did the thing that the last time I was there for fun that all tourists do when they're there for fun of drinking far too much absinthe, ending up in the Kunsthaus, that sort of artist collective that was around a few years back, and then some techno clubs. So as you do when you're in Berlin.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it as well. So
not much more. Yeah.
You look well. Listeners can't see that because it's a podcast, but glad life is going well and you're keeping busy.
Thanks so much, man. Likewise, man. Great to see you doing well and flourishing. I think the last match I saw you in person was probably 2012, maybe.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah,
this was Soho? I think maybe 2012, along with Nick and those guys. I think.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Yeah, long time ago, 2012, 2013, I think.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
got you back in touch and. Yeah, keep up the great work with the podcast.
If you're ever on the West Coast, I'll take you to the Sounders. Not very good, the Sounders. It's they're a good team for MLS, but MLS is championship level football.
Variable quality, quality. Yeah, that's fair to say. Yeah. Well, good, my dude. Well, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And keep up the great work. And like I said, while I'm here, the podcast is obviously the Rantcast was the initial name for me, but no question about that. It's a great rebrand. It's a great name, and you two are doing great work. And I'm in touch actually with Paul quite a lot on the old WhatsApp.
Good.
We often rant to each other. So we're still ranting.
Good stuff. It has to happen. Well, good luck with the launch of Striking Out later this summer, I guess, and your recent books. And I don't know whether you're producing any more. It's BBXO.
BBXO. We've got some money from the German government. Actually,
okay.
We got quite a bit of money to put out an album as a soundtrack to the book I wrote about Berlin, because a lot of the songs were written at the same time. So we're actually going to put out an album this autumn, and we're putting out our first tune in about a week, I think. So that's
great.
Coming out.
I'll look for that.
So, thanks, man.
Best of luck with all that, and many thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, man. All good.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.